Hello and welcome to the Move to France Q&A on November 7th. I'm Allison Grant Lounes. I am the author of Foolproof French Visas. I am the admin of the Facebook group Americans in France. I run a relocation agency called Your Transformation, and we help people who are moving independently to France to pursue their dream life and create the life and business of their dreams. And I have been helping people move to France for pretty much about almost 10 years. So I am happy to be here today to answer some of your questions. Before we get started, I just want to say we had our event at Bloom Where You're Planted at the American Church. It's sort of like a France orientation for people who have either recently relocated or who are thinking about relocating. It used to be organized for the spouses who were trailing following partner, usually husbands, who were transferred here. And since its inception about 50 years ago, it's actually grown into a much more widespread event because that's not the reality of the people who are moving to Paris anymore. And so we had the pleasure of meeting several of our clients who were able to come in person and meeting a lot of the other relocation agencies that serve the American community in Paris. And it was super fun. We met with some of the organizations. I had my colleague, Kim, come up from Montpellier. She has been working with me for about a year and a half. She has always been fully remote and she will stay fully remote, but she's going to be coming on board as a full-time employee starting in January. So I'm super excited about that / terrified because hiring an employee in France is a big deal, but I really need her full-time. She's really great. And she has been a lot of help to both me, keeping me on track and organized, and to our clients and serving them. And so I'm going to be really excited to have her on board. And it's been kind of a crazy experience to learn all about the things that you need to do when you hire employees and all of your new obligations as an employer. So that's been super fun as well. So when we met our clients at the Bloom event, we gave them some swag. We had these nifty folders that say "Mes petits documents pour créer la vie de mes rêves." And then we have these tote bags. Je peux pas, j'ai préfecture. And so some of our clients and potential clients picked up some of those. And I'm hoping that we're going to be able to organize getting little gifts out to our clients now when they sign up. So that was really cool. So I am glad to have you here today. I am available to answer all of your questions for about the next hour on moving to France. And we can talk about how me and my company can serve you if you are looking to relocate and would like to consult with us, or you would like us to guide you through the relocation process. We do visas, we do health insurance, we do business setup, we do passport talent, we do driver's license exchange, all the super fun stuff. We have programs to guide you through everything that you need to know along the way to get ready to move to France. Through our program, Fast Track to France, we have client orientation to keep you organized. And we really try to give you the full view of what is going to be asked of you, both when you are in the process of relocating and then once you arrive here, what you're going to have to do to set up. So if you are interested in learning about our services or working with us, we can absolutely discuss that during the session, and I will provide a link so that you can get a call back from somebody on our team to talk about how we can help you. So I've got your questions here, and again, feel free to add more things in the chat, and we have about the next hour to go over these. The next Q&A is going to be on Monday, December 5th, I believe is the date. So I will look forward to seeing you at that one as well. So these Q&As are completely free. You don't have to be a client to attend. They're every month, usually the first Monday. I think the January one is going to be the second Monday because it's right after school gets back, right after the new year. These Q&As are good to attend regardless of when your planned move is. If your planned move is next week or if you just got here, great, we can answer some of your questions about what to do on arrival. If your planned move is 5 years in the future, I spoke with somebody on Friday who is moving 10 years in the future. We are absolutely able to address those questions as well, with the caveat, of course, that things could change in the next couple of years. And they've already changed many times since I started this job, and I'm sure they will change many times in the future. So The best time to get in touch with us if you do want to work together is usually about 6 months in advance. 6 months, especially if you want to do any of the business visa options. 2 to 3 months is absolutely fine. So, Brett and Karen, understanding that one can't work in France on a long stay visitor visa, can you be an investor, like a silent partner or otherwise, in a French small business? No intention of actually working at or in the business. Yes, so there are no limits on being an investor in the French company. I would check with a US accountant or your CPA or something to just verify that if you do invest in a company, it's not going to negatively impact your taxes in any way. Sometimes if you invest in certain French tax reduction vehicles, like things called like Loi Pinel, you can end up with something called a PFIC, which is a passive foreign investment corporation, which are heavily taxed by the IRS and penalized, and they're not tax advantaged in the US. It's the same way that they would be for French investors in France. So you do want to make sure that you're not getting involved in anything that would be considered a PFIC. But if you're just talking about, for example, my company, where you're buying shares and investing in a business that is, and you own shares of the business directly, and it's not like a mutual fund or a real estate investment co-op thing, it should be absolutely fine. It's not incompatible with a visitor visa. I will say that if you're looking at investing upwards of 30,000 euros, that would be a level that would enable you to get a passeport talent, depending on the business. Or if you invest more than 300,000 euros, there is a special investor passport talent as well. I will admit we haven't done any of those in the past, but that is an option. So I know that you guys are planning on retiring. So, that's not going to be a problem for you. But if there is anybody who's interested in investing in France, then being an investor is one way to get a visa at the level of more than 300 euros. I am not currently looking for investors though, but maybe someday, we'll see. I'm thinking I need office space at some point. All right. Amber, if I'm planning on spending a year in Paris, I might possibly get married in the same time frame. I want to do freelance photography for income. What is the best option for me? Okay, so you don't say the nationality of the person that you're going to be marrying, but let's say if you're marrying a French person, you have a couple of options. Either you get married I assume you live in the US, you get married in the US before you go to France, you register the marriage with the French embassy, you apply for the visa as vie privée familiale, and you arrive in France with the ability to work. Now, the visa application process when you just get married can take a little bit of time because you do have to register the marriage and get it recognized by the Service d'État Civil in Nantes for the Français à l'étranger. So once the marriage is registered, they will give you basically the equivalent of a French marriage certificate and a livret de famille. And then you will use those documents to be able to get the visa. And that takes a good 6 to 8 weeks if you get married in the US. Now, if you get married in France to a French person, you can arrive in France without a visa, get married, and request a carte de séjour directly on site. And you'll pay an extra 180 euros, 200 euros to get your visa regulated since you arrived without a visa. And at that point, you will get a carte de séjour without having to go back to the US. Now, that might seem like a cheaper way to do it because you don't have to pay for a flight and the return trip to the US, but it means that you will be waiting for the carte de séjour and you won't be able to register to work or to register your freelance photography activity right away. So there'll be a little bit of a waiting period. Option 3, get married in Paris. They give you the marriage certificate and the livret de famille on the same day or within a couple of days. You don't have to go through the Service d'État Civil in Nantes. You go back to the US, you apply for your visa in the US with those documents and arrive back in France with the visa to validate and the ability to work. Not as inexpensive. There is the extra expense of the flight and the 2 to 3 weeks in the States while you're waiting for your visa, but it gives you the advantage of you're not like in an irregular situation for several weeks while you're waiting for the visa for the carte de séjour to be issued. Option 4, if you want to come with a profession libérale visa and the ability to freelance for several months or up to a year and then get married at some point during that time and do a change of status, That also protects you a little bit if the relationship deteriorates. So you get to live here with the financial independence of being able to work and do your freelance photography without relying on your partner, but you also get to live together, make sure that the relationship is going to last. You're not relying on your partner for your visa at the beginning. So if things don't work out, you can split up and still have the ability to stay in France if this is where you want to be. I tend to lean on the option of having the ability to be financially independent, because if your visa is tied to your partner and your marriage, if it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, then it's a little bit tricky to then change a status back to a work visa or a freelancer visa or self-employment visa without, it's a little bit more complicated to change your visa status back in that direction. How much money would I need to have in the bank account for the French administration to grant my request for a long stay visa for 1 year or 5 years? So if you're getting a visa through marriage, there's no particular financial requirement. If you're getting a visa through being self-employed, they're going to be looking for a max of, say, 15 to 18,000 euros. That's a maximum. That's the amount that they require when you're not allowed to work at all. So if you are going to be working, you don't necessarily have to have that full amount, but they're going to take into account, do you have any contracts? Do you have people that are going to hire you? Have you done networking? Do you have potential clients? What is your monthly income from your business that you've been earning if you've been already doing that type of business? So they're going to take into account a couple of different factors when they're determining, do you have enough money in the bank? So the answer to that question is a little bit, it depends, but they're only looking at 1 year. They're not looking 5 years out. They're looking for 1 year, because there's no visa that you can get 5 years off the bat unless you're applying for a talent passport for entrepreneurs, and that would be a 4-year carte de séjour off the bat. And then they're looking at usually about 2,000 euros per month net for a year to be able to give you that. Heather, I am studying on a visa long séjour titre de séjour student, which I have fully registered online and have the confirmation documents from the online registration. Since the visa is multi-entry, multi-year, I assume I can travel for December and return easily with my documents. Yes, that is true. However, during the period of renewal, is this the same situation as long as I have documentation of the renewal having been submitted? Yes, so officially what you need is a récépissé, which is a document from the prefecture saying that your visa extension or your visa renewal has been approved and that your new card is being produced. In reality, Americans, anybody from Australia, Canada, New Zealand, you're not going to have problems. If you're from a country where you can regularly travel to France without a visa at all, you're not going to have an issue crossing the border with the receipt of having deposited it and the previous visa and all of that. When you are renewing, you are able to travel. If you submit a première demande, so a first request for another type of carte de séjour because you are changing your status. So let's say you're changing from student to recherche d'emploi création d'entreprise, or changing from student to salarié, or student to passeport talent, or whatever. During that period of status change, technically you're not supposed to leave France. Heather, question 2. If I'm planning to apply for the recherche d'emploi création d'entreprise, so job seeking and company creation visa after the second year of master's in approximately August 2024, what are the most important factors to consider and ensure for this status change? So normally you need to have a date for when your program is finished, but they've become a lot more lenient in giving you an extension from the date that your program finishes to when you actually need to submit all the documents, because they know that there's a delay from when your student visa ends to when you actually defend your master's to when the school will give you your diploma and your grades. There's a lot that has to happen in a short period of time. So they have been developing more leniency to enable you to switch from student to recherche d'emploi création d'entreprise. When that visa type used to be APS, it used to be super difficult to get everything. Like if your student visa expired, you could no longer apply for APS, which caused major problems because the paperwork was always late. I know somebody, one of my clients from the beginning, there was nothing I could do about it. I helped her get into a master's program in France, and she actually ended up at the end of her program having to leave France because her APS, her documents didn't come in time to get the APS. I wasn't working with her at that point, and there wouldn't have been anything I could have done anyway. But that was a bummer. The other thing I will say is you're asking me questions in 2022 about August 2024. And the answer is really, I don't know. I don't know what August 2024 will bring. So ask me again in April of 2024. If I want to move apartments this summer or next summer in July and August, would it be better to do it in the summer while still on a student visa? Still feasible in 2024 as long as I have the new address in time for the application. How soon must it? Yeah, you can change your address online now, so that shouldn't be a big deal. Yeah, you're really gonna have to. I'm just really nervous about answering this question now for 2024 because there'll be 3 rounds of changes to visa stuff between now and then. If I receive a visa long séjour, titre de séjour, starting on or about May 13th, 2023, but wish to make an earlier short visit of 1 week in April on a tourist visa, I assume you mean your passport, does that complicate things in any way? No. So 2 things to keep in mind. One is when you are going to apply for your visa, they're going to keep your passport. So you need to get your passport back in order to make the trip in April. And 2, or you have to wait until after you get back from your trip to apply for the visa. And I'm just trying to see what the advantage is to coming for a short trip before coming permanently, unless it's to look for housing. You don't have to have permanent long-term housing for the visa application, but if you do come for a short trip to find housing, then that obviously helps you and makes things easier for you when you arrive. All right. Teresa, what documents do you need to get a French driver's license if you don't have reciprocity? Do you need documents from everywhere you've had a license? If your state does not have reciprocity with France, you need to take the French written and practical driving tests. You do not need to do the full 20 hours of driving that a French student would have to do, but there's no way to get a French license through paperwork. You're going to have to start by getting a number called a NEPH, an NEPH number from ANTS, and that's all done online. You have to submit a photo and like a justificatif de domicile, proof of address, a copy of your visa, passport, etc. And then they'll issue the number, and that will identify you when you go to take the driving exam. Now, you have a couple of options. One is you can take it in French, and then you get to learn all the fun vocabulary, like what is a carrefour à sens giratoire versus what is a rond-point, because those look the same, but they're actually different. There are also a couple of driving schools that will do the exam in English. So Fahrenbach in the Paris area is one option. They can help you do the driving test in English. I know that some places will offer it with an interpreter, but a lot of times your main option is to do a test at the post office, and you need to learn French good for that. One thing, you have to learn the vocabulary. I am still in a place where if I get into a car, I know what headlights to turn on for what I've been driving for 20 years. But one of the questions that I messed up when I took the driving test that I just didn't know was, it asked me, okay, in this situation, like which headphones should you have on? Headlights should you have on? Your feu de croisement, your feu de, I don't even remember what the different ones are called, but you just have to know the vocabulary, and it's super annoying. And then you need to take the driving test with a practical school. Now, another recommendation I have for that is there are some driving classes or driving schools where they'll do an accelerated license where they'll ship you out to the middle of nowhere for like 3 or 4 days, and you'll take a TGV, you'll stay in a hotel and do all of your driving hours in 1 week, and then take the driving exam at the end. And they have you practice on the road where the driving test is going to be. And it's in a department where you're out in the countryside, there's not a lot of cars around. They have a higher rate of success. It's easier and faster to get driving tests. So that's a good option as well. But Again, probably in most cases, we're going to need French if you're doing it that way. Teresa, how can you find out if your prescription medications are available in France? I actually have a link for that. You have to look it up in the health and safety, like medicine, health and safety. I'm Googling the link right now. It's the Agence Nationale de Sécurité du Médicament et des Produits de Santé. It's called the ANSM, and I'm going to give you a link in the chat. This is also a link that we have available. We give it to our clients in one of our email sequences so they can check this for themselves. So you can go onto that site and look and see. All right. I'm going to answer a few questions from the chat. Victoria, I know you've had this question a million times. How strict are they regarding the income for a visitor long stay visa? I'm purchasing a home and I'm retired. So what they're looking for is 1,329 euros in gross income or assets per month. So if you have cash in the bank, by 1,329 by 12, I can tell you what that is. It's 15,948 euros. So let's call that $16,000 because right now the euro and the dollar are about the same. That's what they're looking for cash for your assets for 1 year. Now, if you buy a house, they do take that into consideration, and the fact that they know you won't be paying rent if your house is fully paid off. So they do take that into consideration and require a slightly less amount. How long does it take to get a freelance business set up? I'm arriving on a visa connected to my husband's Passeport Talent and CDI, so my visa wouldn't be dependent on freelancing. Okay, so if you are coming on your own visa, so either something that enables you to work, vie privée familiale, your own profession libérale visa, something like that, we validate your visa online through OFI as soon as we have your permanent address, and then the same day we can register your auto entrepreneur or freelancing activity. When you are the accompanying spouse of a Passeport Talent holder, first what you need to do is obviously get your long-term address. A lot of companies, if the company is hiring your husband on a relocation contract, they may already have housing or an address that he can use. Once he has that, you have to submit all the documents for the Passeport Talent online again. It's a lot of the same documents for the visa process, and it takes a couple of weeks for them to finalize the account creation online, and they give you his address number. So address is, I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. The Application de gestion des dossiers des ressortissants étrangers en France, in the glossary of foolproof French visas. The address number is his foreigner number, and you then have to create your own online account and link it to his address number. So because your visa is going to be dependent on his visa, or your carte de séjour is dependent on his carte de séjour. So then you can submit your documents through the online system. For you, that's typically going to be like your birth certificate, your marriage certificate, and a justificatif de domicile. And then you have to wait for yours to be approved, and it's usually a couple of weeks. Once you have that approval, you should be able to register your freelance activity online. Now, if you're registering for auto entrepreneur, I actually want you to send in your application by mail with paper copies of everything, preferably waiting until your carte de séjour you have a physical carte de séjour, because the website isn't that smart and it has AI that is not that intelligent and doesn't understand anything other than like a French national ID card. So if you try to submit even a European passport or a different ID document like a visa, it doesn't know what to do and it will reject it. How much does a couple need in assets for a retirement visa? 16,000 or 32,000, somewhere in the middle. You don't need the full double the single person's amount, especially if you're going to be living together and sharing expenses, but you need more than one person's amount. So I would say 24,000. Okay. Rob, if we rent for 3 months while we house hunt and secure a long-term visa during that time, and we close on a home within a year of our arrival, can we move directly into our new home, or do we have to wait a set amount of time? It depends on I'm not sure I understand the question fully. The house buying process takes longer than 3 months in France. So you would have to find a place to live in the meantime. I would suggest getting a long-term lease when you arrive while looking for houses, and then give notice for your long-term lease or long-term rental agreement when you get the keys or when you have a signing date, because there are minimum waiting periods for each part of the home buying process. And we have clients who took like 7, 8, 9 months to get the keys once they signed the compromis de vente. So it's not a quick thing. If we migrate our online business to France, do we need a business visa? Yes. A retirement or visitor visa will not work for if you are running a business of any kind with clients anywhere. What visa to apply for if I have a second home in France and want to be there about 6 months each year? I have a book published in France and would love to be able to do occasional small concerts there. I am 71 and retired in the US. So if you're going to be doing concerts or anything that could be considered lucrative that you might get paid for, then you probably want to go for an artist visa and get a visa on the basis of doing those performances. Now, for the artist visa, what they're going to be looking for is income equivalent to 70% of French minimum wage. French minimum wage is 1,700 euros per month. I'm going to tell you, it's actually 1,678 euros per month. So 1,175 euros per month is approximately what they would be looking for if you are on an artist visa and doing performances, doing what would be considered like intermittent du spectacle. Lynn, we are retired. We have a new home in France and we want to live in France for up to 6 months every year for many years with the freedom to choose which months each year. Is the titre de séjour temporaire the best option for us? That would be cheaper and more flexible than applying annually in the US. Okay, I think you're confusing two things. So temporaire is not renewable and you would have to apply for it every year in the US. A visitor visa, that is a titre de long séjour valant, a visa de long séjour valant titre de séjour, so it's called VLSTS, which encompasses many types of visas, with the visitor status, would enable you to spend up to 12 months out of 12 months in France during 1 year. So you can spend all of the time in France, you can spend half to 75% of the time. Theoretically, it's supposed to be making France the place that you spend the most time. If you have that visa, you can renew it every year in France and have a carte de séjour. You would have to make sure that you were in France at least for the period when your carte de séjour is being renewed and to go pick it up at your local prefecture. So most of that process now for the visitor visa is completely online, but you do have to go pick it up in person. Is it possible to visit France without a visa for less than 90 days out of 180, then continue our stay on a visa long séjour, assuming we can get the visa long séjour processed in the USA before our trip to France? This would allow us to select our preferred month. So I don't understand what that question means exactly. I would say you want to apply for, when you apply for your visa, you select the start date of your visa. You would indicate that on your date, but you wouldn't apply for your visa in January, ask for a start date in May, and then spend February to May in France with a visa that's going to start in May. First of all, that's not possible because you can only apply for your visa up to 90 days before its start date. So you would want to plan your arrival for whenever your arrival date is. That's when you're going to have to renew your visa every year, and that starts slightly before your visa expires, and then it goes till slightly after your visa renewal date. All right. My partner is a photographer for 20 years. We're considering moving on an artist visa. Does that sound possible? So photography is a little tricky because it can potentially be services, or it can potentially be artist related, and potentially both. So it kind of depends on how you want to frame the photography activity. If you're framing it as you're selling the rights to your photos because they're going to be published in magazines, or they're going to be printed on t-shirts or whatever, then that's more artist. If you are, say, doing wedding photography or photography as a service, doing headshots, doing photos of pastries for marketing purposes, etc., that's going to be services that would fall under profession libérale. Okay, prints for sale would fall under artist, profession artistique. So yeah, that absolutely sounds possible, and that's exactly the type of thing that we work on. I didn't work too many hours and I followed all the rules for 5 years. Why was I refused a 10-year resident card and given a titre de séjour travailleur temporaire? What's my recourse? I sent a letter to the prefecture asking why and never received a reply. There's a rule in France that 4 months sans réponse is an implicit refusal and I have legal grounds to pursue. I don't understand the 4-month rule nor what action steps to take to pursue legal action. That's you're going to have to talk to an employment attorney or to an immigration attorney about that. That's not a question that I'm really qualified to answer. But if you've only had CDDs and you haven't been making enough money, then that's probably why the long-term residency card would be approved if there's too many breaks in the contract. I can give you a reference for an immigration attorney that would be able to help. So send me an email and I will provide those contact details. But that's the kind of question that is a little bit beyond the scope of what I am qualified to answer. Most immigration stuff, so visas, all of the admin stuff that we do, driver's license exchanges, healthcare, etc., that's all considered admin. So when we provide those services, it is called like conseil en immigration non juridique. So it's consulting services on non-legal immigration matters. But once we get into things doing a recours or contesting a decision, or if you get an OQTF, an obligation de quitter le territoire français, all of that stuff is more the domain of an immigration attorney. So I would suggest contacting one in that situation. David, if I owned a French property with a separate space to rent as a short-term rental, would a non-work visa allow me to do so? Yes. So the magic number for short-term or for rental property is 23,000 euros. If you are earning under 23,000 euros, it's considered what's called location meublée non professionnelle. So it's furnished non-professional rentals. Under 23,000 euros, you do not need to consider it a business. You do need to register it and declare the income and report taxes. But at that point, you're not paying social charges on it, and it's not being considered a business by the French government. Over 23,000 euros, it needs to be registered typically as an auto entrepreneur type of business. And you can add other activities to it. You're paying social charges, you're paying into the French system, and you need to have the proper visa. So under 23,000, you're fine on a visitor visa. Over 23,000, you need to make sure everything is registered properly and you have the visa to do it. Now, if you want to consider it a proper business and go over the 23,000, you typically need to do things to beef up the rental activity. Usually it's not going to just be rentals. It'll be something renting kayaks for the nearby lake, or doing something called a table d'hôte, which is when people who are staying at your property will eat the same meal around the same table as you, or for dinner or for breakfast. Things like that you would add into your business plan that would generate additional revenue and that would enable you to register it more easily, because sometimes if they're not sure you're going to go over that 23,000 threshold, they will refuse to register it as a business until you do. But you need to have projections over 23,000 in order to get the business visa. So that's something to be a little bit careful of when you're looking at doing that sort of thing. Marilee, are there such a thing as continuing care retirement facilities in France? What are the entry and monthly fees? Okay, so we actually do have a client he's American, his wife is French. They moved here and he put his mother in one of these. It's called an EHPAD it's a retirement home. I couldn't tell you about the fees, but it's absolutely possible to find a retirement home. They're out in the middle of nowhere. They're kind of near Clermont-Ferrand, which is very country. Their prefecture is really tiny, but it's definitely possible, but probably easier out sort of in the middle of nowhere. After my student visa is up, how much time will I have to look for a job if I decide to stay? You can apply for a recherche d'emploi création d'entreprise if you are finishing a degree program, if you're finishing a master's. You can apply for that type of visa that will give you 1 year. If you are not finishing a degree program, a master's or equivalent, then you have until your visa expires, and you're not going to get any special privileges in trying to convert your visa to something else. Diane, how can I book a 30-minute consultation with you? So I will give you the link to request a 30-minute consultation. Now, the 30-minute consultations are for, or if you are considering working with us and you want to discuss what that would look like and get to know me, hear a little bit about my team, talk about your plans, make sure that we're a good fit to work together and that your project is something that we are competent to help with. We don't have a lot of time when it's 20 or 30 minutes. It's my agenda to see if we're a good fit. It's normally done within a couple of months of you actually wanting to get started on the process. If you would like to book some of my time so that you can ask me your questions, then it is a paid consultation, and I can give you the link to that as well. What we do now is you submit a request for a call through our website, and I'm actually going to have one of our former clients who is here in Paris and is self-employed, and she's going to be calling you up to just talk a little bit about your plans, sort of checking to make sure that your project is something that we can help with. And then if you're ready to get on the phone with me, then we'll talk about what package would be a good fit. Do we feel comfortable working together? Tell me a little bit about your plans and how we can make that happen. So just so you get an idea of what the goals of the different calls are. Now, if you schedule a paid consultation, obviously you can do that at any time, whether you're planning on moving in a month or in 10 years. You can get on a paid call at any time, and then you have an hour of my time to ask whatever questions you want. And the thing about the paid calls is if you do then sign up for a package with us within 90 days, I will give you a credit for what you paid for the paid call. But if you don't, at least you will have gathered some information and can use that for your future plans. And then you can get a free call later when you're more ready to sign up. The link is right there, so you can take a look. Okay, what websites do you recommend for home rentals and sales? Which one? Home rentals, I would say you want to look at, it really depends on where you're looking. I mean, the thing about France is that there's no overall database of properties for sale or rentals available for rent or anything like that. So you really have to go local. You have to visit your local agencies. You have to visit, there's a couple of websites that are national, like pap.fr, particulier. That is individual landlords. There's Le Bon Coin, there's Se Loger. Those are going to be the main ones. And then there's all of the agencies have their own websites as well for properties that are managed by them. I also think a really good way to do it is to just go to the towns that you want to live in and go to the city center and look at the rental agencies and walk in and talk to somebody. People aren't necessarily going to take you super seriously if you're writing to them or calling them from the US and you're not here yet, you don't have a visa yet. It's really better to do things in person, on site when you get here. And the other thing is, if you have foreign income and foreign assets, you're going to have kind of a hard time because you're risky for a landlord. So you also want to look at the different expat groups and try to see if there are other foreigners with properties to rent. And there are programs like Garant Me and Uncle are lease guarantee services that can provide you with an insurance policy for unpaid rent for a fee. And those policies as well will often point you in the direction of agencies that have accepted them in the past. So you can use them as resources too. Natalie, I'm looking for summer camps for a 3-year-old and nursery school so I can enjoy myself. Where do I start looking? So the first place to look is the mairie of the town that you're going to be staying and registering your child for school there. Now, if you're looking at private or international schools, then you have a little bit more Googling to do. If that's the case, then you want to check out the AAWE, the Association of American Women in Europe. They're an association based in Paris, and they have a book called Guide to Education in France, and they have all of the international bilingual schools in France listed by department.
So if you're looking for international or bilingual school, that would be a good place to start. Otherwise, you can go to your local mairie or the mairie of places that you might want to live, register your child for school there, and then see if there are going to be day care options during the school vacation, all of the breaks, including the summer. There's something called the Centre de Loisirs, which is basically day camp at school where they're doing activities. Sometimes they'll go on field trips, they do arts and crafts, they do all kinds of things. And that is available starting in maternelle. And it's basically a full day, and it's usually the building right next to the school, but they're doing not school stuff. Regarding the rental, is 23,000 euros an annual limit? Yes, for the business threshold, 23,000 euros is an annual limit. Usually those annual limits, though, are also prorated by month. So you can consider that it's also a slightly less than 2,000 euro annual monthly limit as well. Diane, I am an American citizen with a second home in France and a published book in France. I would like to obtain an artist or long-stay tourist visa. What would be the best, as I will be doing author book tours and some concerts? Did we already have this question? If you're doing anything that would be considered lucrative, then you would need to have an artist visa. Is this true? The 90 out of 180 day allowance runs in parallel with the visa system and is completely separate from it. Yes. Once a person has a French visa, their 90-day limit is suspended. Yeah, so if you come to France for 60 days, like let's say you come from, or let's say 90 days, let's say you come from January 1st, 2023, and you leave France on March 25th, 2023, you can go back and apply for your French visa on March 31st, have the visa start on April 7th, and be back in France on April 10th. And the 90 days that you had previously spent won't matter because you'll have that visa. So yeah, that's how it works. Once we've relocated to France, how often do we have to renew our visas? How long in advance of the visa expiration date do we have to begin the process? So that depends a little bit on the type of visa. So for most visas, you're going to get a 1-year visa to start. So this is true for student visas. It's true for profession libérale. It's true for vie privée familiale. It's true for retirement visas. You get a 1-year visa to start. Now, for certain situations, you're actually able to apply for a multi-year carte de séjour at the end of your first year. If you're vie privée familiale, you'll get likely 2 years. If you're profession libérale, it depends on how much income you reported during that first year. If your business is rolling along and you're doing just fine and you're declaring regular income, more than French minimum wage, you're very likely to get 4 years. And then you don't have to worry about any kind of renewal until the end of that 4-year period, at which point you can request a 10-year card. If you're retired, you're going to be renewing your visa and getting a new carte de séjour every year, indefinitely. You can request, at some point, you can request to have a multi-year visa, but it's not a guarantee when you are on a visitor status. In terms of how long before the expiration date you have to begin the process, 2 to 3 months before your visa is going to expire. Now, for visitor visa, that can all be done online now. For student visa as well, it can be done online. For all other visa types, you still have to make an appointment and physically go to the préfecture in almost all circumstances. Some departments are a little bit like they might have you send things in by mail and then go in person just for your fingerprints. So it really depends. If we're collecting US Social Security and paying US taxes on that and other income, does that disqualify us from accessing the French healthcare system? No. So if you are in France for more than 90 days with a valid visa that is not a temporary stay visa, you're going to be able to register for French healthcare. And it will take slightly longer. You send in your application on day 90. It's going to take a couple weeks/months to actually get proof of coverage and your carte vitale and to get reimbursements and things like that. But you will be covered from roughly the 3rd to 4th month after you get here. If you're on an auto entrepreneur, for example, your coverage is going to begin corresponding with the date that we register your auto entrepreneur activity. So if you're working or self-employed or anything like that, your coverage is going to be able to start much sooner. In terms of paying into the system, you are going to have to, as a French tax resident, submit a tax declaration every year, and that will be transmitted to URSSAF at some point, to CEPAM, and they will create a bill, a calculation for a premium that you will pay for access to French healthcare. Nowhere near as high as premiums in the US, no way to get out of it. But I don't want to get too much into the weeds with the calculation because honestly, it's changed several times. It's really opaque to me exactly how they make the determination. But government and state pensions are not taken into consideration for the PUMA calculation. So if you mostly have Social Security and pension income, you're probably not going to have that high of a premium for your healthcare. If you have a lot of business, dividend, interest, rental, etc. income, you might be paying a little bit more. But typically, if you're mostly with pension income, you shouldn't have too high of a bill. Above and beyond the cost of the home we're buying, how much cash do we have available for requisite expenses, visa fees in the first few months? Not talking about living expenses or shipping costs. So visa fees are actually not that high. Visas it's about 30 euros a piece for the appointment. It's 99 euros a piece for the actual visa processing. It's 200 euros when you arrive to validate a visitor visa online with OFI. And those are the main fees that you have to take into account for the visa itself. There's no fee associated with submitting applications to CEPAM or exchanging your driver's license or anything like that. So there aren't very high or very significant administrative fees for the relocation process. Yolanda, my partner and I have been together for 5 years. I'm American and he's French. We got paxed in October 2020, and we are splitting our time between New York City and Paris. He works for Air France, so I have his flying privileges, which makes flying back and forth easy, not residing more than 183 days. It's the 90 out of 180 day rule that you need to look at. We passed the 2-year mark of being paxed, which we read qualifies me to apply for the carte de séjour. I am getting ready to move to France in the next year and need a work permit. Can I get the vie privée familiale even though I didn't get a resident visa to begin with? Normally, you have to be living together and paxed for more than 1 year in order to get a vie privée familiale visa. So if he is on your documents and you have in the US, in New York, and you can try it, but in many cases, they make the pax partner start off with a 1-year visitor visa before you can get a vie privée visa. Le Bon Coin has fairly recently started requiring 2-factor authentication. It only accepts French numbers. Do you know a way to manage having a French number when you're still in the States? That is a really good question. I mean, if you have a French number and a French contract or a SIM card, you should be able to continue using it outside of France, even if you pay fees. I have a kind of expensive cell phone plan that allows me to use it wherever, including outside of France. Let me look into that question because it's an interesting issue and I would like to know the answer for you, but I don't off the top of my head. Can we watch the webinar later? Will you send us a link? Yes, I will send out, the replay will go out in the Wednesday newsletter, and I'll also post a link to it on social media. I'm at Your Transformation pretty much everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, a WhatsApp. I don't think WhatsApp issues their own phone numbers. I use a service for calling called Ringover. It's mostly for businesses, but it's like a VoIP, any of our team can log in to that to make calls from our business phone number. We don't have a cell phone number for the business, but I know that it's a possibility to get one. I don't know if it can receive text messages though. I know it can send text messages if you sign up for a cell phone number, but I don't know about receiving them. So I will have to look into that. But that is the annoying thing about 2-factor identification now, is that if you have accounts in multiple countries and they're predisposed to only accepting numbers from that country, then it can cause problems. I do have a second cell phone line that I use for when I have to make accounts and requests for our clients who don't have phone numbers yet. But even that, we maxed out on we were setting up Google accounts for our clients, and now you have to put in a phone number to do that. And so we maxed out on the number of new Google accounts that I could set up We have all our clients set up an email address like A Lounes in France, so that we can use that for all of the admin correspondence and then get a copy. They set up forwarding to forward us automatically any correspondence that they get from the prefecture, from CEPAM, from wherever, and we set up all their accounts for them. All right. Michael, I have dual French-American citizenship and I'm married to an American. We live in the US and have been married for more than 5 years. Can she apply for her French citizenship or must she live in France for at least 4 years before applying? Yes, it would be a great idea for her to apply for French citizenship now through marriage. She will have to provide a French test. She'll have to show at least a B1 level in French. You can go onto the website of the Centre d'études, the Centre International d'Études Pédagogiques, CIEP.fr. It will list all of the places in the US where you can take either the TCF ANF, the Test des connaissances du français, accès à la nationalité française, or you can take the DELF and provide those results, but it will go a lot faster and be a lot easier if you're doing it through the French consulate in the US rather than one of the prefectures in France. Okay, second question from Yolanda. My partner recently bought a property in the Paris suburb of Noisy-le-Grand. That's right next to me. But we are thinking about living in the US for the next 2 years. If we want to rent it out to someone looking for a non-permanent place to live, prospective visa applicants looking for a place for 6 to 8 months, do you have recommendations of where to post? Are we limited by how much we can charge to non-French citizens? So the things to look at would be, you would have to meet the criteria for doing a bail mobilité. You would have to check with the mairie of Noisy-le-Grand to see if there are any restrictions on Airbnbs, because cities over a certain size are able to restrict Airbnbs. And I think Noisy-le-Grand might be big enough that they could put those restrictions into place. If you're doing something Airbnb-like, it would be less than 90 days because you're limited to 90 days as a seasonal rental. If you're doing longer than 90 days, but less than a year, it would have to be a bail mobilité, and there are specific criteria that your renter would have to meet, like a temporary work contract or an internship or something like that. So visa applications or visa applicants would not fit into those criteria generally unless they were students. You can do a 9-month furnished lease for a student or a 12-month furnished lease that is just a general lease. I will say you could also potentially do a secondary residence lease, and then you have a lot more flexibility into the terms that you want to put in, but that's a lot less advantageous for the tenant. I tend to tell people to flee those kinds of propositions. However, you don't want to be in a situation 2 years from now where you want to go live in your property and somebody doesn't want to leave. So you have to be a little bit careful in what you're going to do. Alex, how much money do we have to show for a 2-people family, self-employed? Does it have to be in the bank, or can I show monthly income? You can show a combination of monthly income plus money in the bank. They want to see 1,700 euros per month for the self-employed person. I would say they probably want to see about 2,200 a month if you have a dependent who's not going to be working. The Visa Wizard doesn't require an FBI background check for a self-employment visa. Do we need it? No. As of right now, the only time you would need an FBI background check is in 2 situations. One is for a talent passport entrepreneur visa, because you have to show that you haven't been convicted of anything that would prevent you from running a business in France. And 2, if you're applying for French naturalization, then you need to provide a background check if you've lived in France for under 10 years. Okay. I am enrolled with Alliance Française classes for 5 months and waiting for my Campus France application to be approved. Once approved, I will go to VFS Global to apply. Is there a high chance this will be approved for a student visa if I'm just doing 5 months of language classes? Once it is up, I will likely look for jobs. How much time do I have to look for jobs before having to return to the US? You are unlikely to get a student visa for 5 months of language classes. And the visa is probably going to give you a week, maybe 2 beyond your visa, and it's very likely to be a temporary stay visa. So I would say that you're not going to have a lot of freedom to look for jobs, and you're going to have to apply for a new visa from the US, and you're not going to have any kind of advantages compared to a company trying to hire somebody from the US. So yeah, 5 months of language classes is not sufficient to give you a leg up in any kind of visa application process, unfortunately. Can you estimate how long it takes? Long séjour, titre de séjour after applying through VFS Global. Usually, so I tell people to leave a month between an application date and departure date. Usually people get visitor, profession libérale, etc. visas back within 10 to 14 days. Usually visitor visas within 10 days for sure. Family visas within 10 days. Profession libérale, we just had one apply on October 28th, which was the Friday before a long weekend in France, so the consulate might have been closed on Monday and Tuesday. VFS was not closed, but the consulate could have been. And they just got a request about right before I started the call. I saw a request come in for more documents. So they took about 10 days to even look at it. Talent passport, I could not tell you. Talent passport, I would leave the full 90 days between application date and departure date. All right. I do want to say, if you have questions about what visa type is the best, if you're not sure about the timeline, if you want to know what documents to provide, this is your most complete resource, Foolproof French Visa 2022 edition. It will tell you everything that you did not think that you needed to know about every type of visa that exists for moving to France. It is available on Amazon. It is also available as an ebook through my website. If you buy a paperback on Amazon, we will give you, email us, post a review, we will give you the digital version as well. There have been only a couple minor changes since this was published on January 3rd. So it's still the best resource that's out there. There will be a new edition probably in the beginning of March. I'm not going to rush to get it done over Christmas like I did last year, especially since there haven't been many updates and this is still very complete. But this is what you want to use if you're planning on applying for a visa within the next 6 months. If you would like to consider working with me and the Transformation team on making your dream of moving to France a reality, I'm going to give you a link again to request a call with us. So again, the free calls are going to be a call from somebody on our team and then setting up a call with me to discuss packages and working together and if we're a good fit and all of that stuff and when you want to start. If you are too far out to talk about that stuff yet, but you would like to pick my brain and ask as many questions as you can fit into an hour, you are absolutely welcome to set up a paid call with us as well, with me as well. All of our clients get access to our client orientation, our online programs, Fast Track to France, Complete French Business Incubator, if you are going to be self-employed or starting a business. And we have in progress right now an excellent set of autoresponder sequences in the works because we want to make sure that we point you in the right direction. We have about like 87 videos on different aspects of moving to France, and we want to make sure that you see all of the most important stuff. It's everything in your retirement edition contained in the complete edition. So the retirement edition was 2020. It's not the most up-to-date edition. The complete edition is the most up-to-date. That being said, the retirement stuff hasn't changed much. I mean, it's basically the net number amounts that have changed, but you want to buy the up-to-date 2020 complete 2022 edition. I may at some point do another retirement edition. It just didn't seem like many people bought it the first couple, like when I first released it, so I didn't update that. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, then I would like to thank you all for coming. The next Q&A is going to be, I'm going to tell you the exact date because I don't know it off the top of my head. It's going to be Monday, December 5th, same time, same place. We'll get the Zoom link if you've signed up. You can submit your questions online in advance. And I hope to see you there. And please do reach out if there's anything that we can do to help make your dream of moving to France a reality. Me and my team would be so happy to work with you. It's a lot of fun helping people make that dream come true. And I look forward to hearing from you. Have a good night.